Hello, YouTube. For those of you guys wondering, hey, why is he maybe a little different today? We just got out of watching Anohana, and it fucking wrecked me for episode one, if that makes sense. But yes, hello, YouTube. Now is the time for Mushoku Tensei episode number 4. For those of you guys that are wondering, no, I have not read up ahead. I haven't seen any episodes. We're doing this literally every Friday, Sunday, and possibly Tuesday. Although tomorrow's going to be sort of a weird schedule, I might just record it off screen, or I might just get on at a random hour and quickly do one anime. Just because it depends on how I feel, because I feel like I'm getting a little bit sick. But it just depends on how we feel. So I'll make sure to update Discord. But with that being said, hit the likes button, subscribe, comment something that you've learned along the way in the past couple of episodes. I try and keep my content a little bit different than just making silly faces and looking at a screen for 10 minutes and being like, and like not really contributing to what a discussion should be or transformative content. So I hope you guys are enjoying that. And anyway, why don't we go ahead and just jump into it? Bruh. Bruh.
申し訳ありません。妊娠い
Yeah,
た
I
しまし
know.
た。
Wait, what the fuck? This show is barely fucking 39 seconds in. It's 39 fucking seconds in, and they're dropping these bombs on us. Don't fucking. Okay, don't fucking tell me that Rudy's dad has got it going on. He's all they've wanted, and they waited for so long. What the fuck? Oh no, no, seriously, did because like there's no one else in the house. They'll tell me it's like miraculous conception, but I mean it wouldn't make sense. He has like we've seen them get it on. Granted, it might be through Rudius's perspective, and the narrative might be changed that way, and like he might just be like, you know, must be Rudy. Oh yeah, oh, must be Rudy, bro. I will analyze what I want to analyze, Vitaj, because this is now comes a big question. Yeah, if this is okay in the society and culture, right? If Rudy's dad is the one that actually decided to hook up, how does this change the dynamics inside of the family? And also, you can't necessarily be like, oh yeah, you know what? Like, especially if there's always sexualization or sexual content or moaning or sex in the house happening consistently out loud in front of your face, whatever. You can't necessarily be like, oh, a kid's not going to grow up that way. You know, a lot of kids are sponges. They grow up with what they hear, what they see, the environment, so on and so forth. So, yeah, that's a lot to take in already. What the fuck?
いた。すまん。多分
Bro,
俺の子だ。
bro, what the
情けない
fuck?
じゃないか。嫌いじゃないよ。お前のそういうところ。状況は最悪だけどな。
Yeah, this is pretty bad, dude. This is pretty fucking bad. So this is something that I brought up in, I guess when I was talking about the "you asked, we answered" section. Um, Relationships should always be checked in. It doesn't matter if you're married. It doesn't matter if you've been with your partner for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, however many years. Um, so the biggest thing that I can go ahead and say is like make sure that you keep updating or your contract. It's gonna sound horrible, but updating your contract in terms of like, when you're with your partner or whatever, establish what boundaries are okay. Establish that communication. Start talking about, hey, you know what? For example, what if one of us, whatever reason, we start seeing someone else, infidelity? Are we okay with being in a polyamorous relationship, having multiple kids with other people? Like, where do we draw the line as to what the definition of a relationship is? Which is why you can go ahead and give a lot of the polycule couples and like poly couples in general a lot of credit, because they have to go ahead and have boundary discussions and what is okay and not okay, consent talks, 101 things, a majority of the time, you know. Um, so It sounds cold. It might sound cold, but the reason why it's important to go out and do that is because like every so often, we as individuals, as human beings, especially we get into the habit of leniency. We get into the habit of like, for example, once you mastered a subject, it becomes sort of automatic. You know, you start putting it in the back of your head, and it's sort of like running through the routines. And that's why sometimes relationships get boring, and you get into that boring stage of a relationship where people have like feel kind of stuck because there's not that interaction going on. So, for example, even in sexology, and even if we're talking about Rudius or anything like that, right? What's the number one thing that like you have to bring up? And granted, there were some people that were like, you should not have consent talks with kids. You should absolutely have consent talks with kids. You should talk to them about consent, about like sharing toys. That can transform into consent about what is okay and not okay in rules of play, what is okay and not okay with individuals growing up. So, i.e., like, you know, your body's your own. Don't let anybody else touch your body, so on and so forth. Respect boundaries, respect friends, 1,001 things. And that's how you grow into the topics that will later on be like, hey, not only respecting your partner, but also like talking to them like, hey, you know what? If your partner is like not into something, it can stop at any moment, and you have to be, you should be okay with it. You should also be okay with saying, hey, you know what? I'm uncomfortable with what's happening at the moment, or I don't feel it, or I'm not in the mood, or whatever, and be able to say, hey, you know what? Let's stop here for the night, or let's switch into something else. Like, and this is off topic from Mushoku Tensei, but it's really important to incorporate, i.e., if your partner is not feeling into the mood, or like, for like penetrative or anything in regard, oral penetrative, whatever it might be, you can go ahead and just switch it. And they're like, hey, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and finish each other off? Or, just go into like straight up, I'll say mastication. I can't really say the word on this because it'll be TOS. But we can like go ahead and like throw it out that way. And, you know, think about it in that regard. Think about it in the regard of like what those boundaries of respect are, what the boundaries are available and therefore, because something big like this, like a new child being introduced, just a child introduction into a general family is already a fucking dynamic change, because now you have to deal, for example, are you like a big brother, small brother? Are you There's a new roles being added. um how does the communication work? How Who do you focus on, especially if you're an inexperienced parent as they're growing up? Do you spend more time focusing on the adult kid, especially since they're about to go through puberty, or do you focus more on the child that needs the assurance and the security? And you have 1,001 things that you can go through, or in some cultures, do you leave the older child to take care of the younger children? There's a lot of weird shit like that out there. A lot of weird scenarios that you can put your mind into and just try to like process and think about. Anyway, the sound is off because I don't want to get copyright struck. The conversations they must have. That must be one of the most awkward conversations.
夜には毛皮を用意してくれる。散らかした本はきちんと整頓してくれる。それに何より彼女はご神体の存在を知りつつ黙ってくれている。
What's funny is I think it was a comment, a random comment, when I was talking about like, attachment and whatnot. They're like, he's a 30-something-year-old in a kid's body. And it's like, you guys do know, as kids, we always like latch on to like the weirdest things for like comfort, security, attachment, whatnot, right? And so like how some of us might have our blankies. Literally, his blankie might be a pair of underwear. It's not the weirdest shit I've seen people and little kids get attached to, especially as a growing up setting. Is it different than normal shit? Is it usually like a stuffed toy and whatnot? Yeah, absolutely. But then if you have like, I guess if you're being born into a hypersexual environment in which your attachment and or release is something of that nature, what are you gonna like cherish? What does your security look like? Who has provided you care that is not necessarily immediate family, and how would you get attached to that? I.e., and for some of you guys wondering, I'll never be like Rudius, I would never, yeah, I would never dote on something random. Guys, let's take away the supernatural element for a second. Just like grab it and throw it in the trash. This, and let's put it into modern day perspective. Your parents, while they love you, they have to go out for the night. They bring in a hot babysitter. You as a kid, what are majority of people that have had a babysitter or something like that, you know, will probably like, especially if they find them attractive in any way, shape, or form, have weird feelings of attachment that get brought up, you know. But that's the thing, Dark Thug, is how do you know? For example, how do you not know that like your brother, sister, sibling's friend is not another 30-year-old inside of that body? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to rationalize it through the way that a therapist would, you know? And that's one of the biggest things that like a takeaway that you definitely would. Like you don't exactly know if someone else's soul or even your soul might be a lot older than what you know for that regard. But I'm trying to take it away as like if I was a therapist and you were to bring me this scenario, this as we do or as we did earlier in stream where we read people's asking for help, scenarios created. Do you mind throwing up the email on there for people that need it or want it, and breaking it down that way? Breaking it down like if this was a family dynamic, normal, take away the 30-year-old soul or whatever, and just put it into making it his own voice. You know, how do you uh, go into this? How do you like dissect a situation, a problem, a mindset, a schema, if you will, uh, and try and turn it into something like, i.e., how does a child grow? How does a child, the email for individuals that want to go ahead and send like need advice or anything like that. If you have it, please and thank you. But yeah, no, that's totally the purpose of this, and a lot of people seem to get strung up on that idea. Definitely, Dark Thug, where it's like he's a 30-year-old inside of a child's body, but you bring up argument presentations, and I'm not trying to make the argument for and or against. I'll have you guys know, for any of you guys that watch, I'm not trying to be like yes, no. What I'm trying to say is like quite literally, how would you even know if any one of your family members, friends, or whatever is older than what they say they are internally? What if they're having internal monologues like this? You would have no idea. Also, now put that into perspective, throw it out the way. Then you have the argument that are people only getting triggered because this 30-year-old soul was not an attractive looking individual? Because you can flip it the other way, and as I've said in various episodes, and have like 5,000-year-old lollies or individuals that were extremely handsome that get reincarnated or anything like that. And I haven't heard a single peep. I haven't heard like any like big anti crusade against something like that. Okay, say that you're like, let me discard the argument because of that. Okay, let's go ahead and throw it out the window. You know? So there you go. That's two arguments out the window. So now let's go ahead and talk about dynamics, right? Which is very clearly if you're a kid and you're going through something like this, right? Or vice versa, how do you judge individuals with hyper or hyposexuality? And in this case, what do you deem as normal and what is outside of the range of normality for you? Because everyone has a different range as to what is acceptable and not. And unless you're a mental health professional, a sociologist, or someone that's been in the direct care, you can go ahead and label things in specific categories, you know? Aw. Hi, Venom Snake. Ah, are you working for the Patriots? Thank you so much. I really appreciate you finding the channel and, you know, looking at it through that interesting perspective. So, yeah, also criminal psychology is wonderful. I actually worked a bit with parole and probation here. It is absolutely one of the best things to go ahead and get into if you can. So, accept your fate. Wonder what the response would be if you got, or even that, you know? For example, what if, yeah, exactly, Lunar. What if you got reincarnated into the opposite sex? And, you know, you're, say that you're like a 40, 50-year-old businessman that gets reincarnated into the opposite sex. And all of a sudden you have all these individuals like flailing to you. I haven't heard any major arguments or anything random like that. So it's one of the biggest things. Is that another anime title? Well, that's sort of like the thing is like if you throw that out there though, like you put into perspective why people are getting triggered and like or why there might be granted, there are people who have gone through the opposite end of the spectrum where, for example, Rudy is not sort of understanding the limits of what boundaries are or consent or whatnot. Or, they've gone through some traumatic event, SADV, whatever you want to go ahead and call it. And in which case, we have to empathize with that scenario and say, hey, you know what? This show might trigger you, forewarning. We're looking at this through uh, so psychological lens, social psychological, criminal psychology, pretty much anything in general. Yeah, and that's the thing is, as kids, if you go through like Freud or if you go through pretty much any human development class, you'll start finding out that like that's where you start to find out who you are is through the sexuality aspect as well. Oh wow. Oof. But with that being said, I could go into this and like try and like just destroy a lot of arguments. In that regard, the only valid argument that I can see for people disliking this show is if a theme of it or something that is done triggers you personally, in which case, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the show for you. Maybe it's time to like look at other shows. But you have to remember there are going to be a lot of situations out there, specifically if you have a trauma SADB, whatever it may be that you haven't completely processed that might continue to trigger you. And I would suggest reaching out for more help. Mental health, whatever you can, because it is important for someone to try and self-actualize in that aspect. And then vice versa. If you're the creep or creeps that are like, huh, yeah, lolis, huh, pushing boundaries and consent, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm gonna throw this out there as well because I know some of y'all like only get to see some of the good aspects. There are some dark comments that actually come through that I'm sure the mods and sometimes myself when I go through and I see that like we delete immediately because that is not okay, guys. It's okay to have a discussion, a full-on discussion about what is good, morally good, or what the boundary settings are, where it's okay and not okay. But if you are legitimately, yeah, if you are legitimately into like specific things like CP or whatnot, get some help. That's the best way that I can say it without it saying anything else. Go to a psychologist, mental health aspect as well, because you guys have to remember there are boundaries that need to be set, especially if you are an adult and you're looking at this show for some other aspect other than just like what morals or what the storytelling narrative may lead us. I'm just throwing that out there just because there are some of the comments that like popped up can be a little rough or can be a little. You can question some of the comments. Best way to put it. Not everyone, because the majority of you guys are really, really well focused into the discussion aspect, and I appreciate it.
お父さんたちがやっちゃいけないことをしたからよ。
そうですか。しかしリーリャは父様に逆らえるのでしょうか。
Oh, my dude shifting blame here.
父様はリーリャの弱みを握っています。この間夜中にトイレに行こうと思ってリーリャの部屋の前を通ったら父様が何とかを言いふらされたくなかったらおとなしく股を開けって言っていました。
ルーディ、何をバカな。
あなたは黙っていなさい。
そんな。
My dude.
今の話は本当？いえ、そんなことは。
Fucking Rudy, dude.
そうよね。あなたの口からは言えないわよね。
Oh.
俺はそんなこと。
I mean, turn the power dynamics, yeah.
世話になったはまた次回だ。
母様、リーリャは悪くない。
Actually, thank you for clarifying, Venom. No, yeah, there's a difference between fantasy and reality. So if you understand fantasy and lolis, that's one thing, keep it, like as I said, like that's you, right? But if you can't distinguish between that and in reality, that's where it's not okay. Perfect, like way to explain it. Great job, Venom.
それに母様、僕にとっては両方とも兄弟です。
Yeah, bro, Rudy hitting all the triggers.
母様、僕はまだ。
後でゆっくりと話を聞かせていただきます。
Oh, fuck, dude. First off, I gotta ask you guys this, right? Because that is one of the worst fucking sensations in the world. Aside from, like, the intuition in like your like stomach or wherever in your body when you feel like your partner is cheating. That is one of the fucking worst intuitions in the world, throwing that out there. But one of the other worst intuitions, one of the other uh I guess big things out there is like, how many of you guys have freaked the fuck out when someone's like, "Hey, we need to have a chat through text. No emojis, no nothing, just that line. Like, hey, we need to talk. Period. No emotions, nothing." How many of you guys have freaked out? I know I have. I'll be honest. I like when I get that message, I can be doing whatever the fuck I'm doing, having the best day in the world. I get a message just like that. Instantly, my mind goes into like fight or flight, panic mode. I'm like, oh shit, what the fuck did I do? I'm like trying to recount, like retrace my steps. Like, where did I mess up? Did I do something wrong? It could be one of the healthiest relationships in the world, but that's one of the like the instant trigger things that like we all have, you know? And yeah, I'm anxious as shit. Like if anyone sends me that, instantly I can be like, as I said, I can be having the best day in the world. I can be talking normally, and then that just randomly pops up, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's energy. And it's not just that. It's because it's an internal like, I'm gonna put it. It's one of the biggest things. Like if you've never encountered how that can end. If it's your first time experience, hey, we need to talk. You probably take that normally. But if you've encountered conversations where that ends badly, you've now internalized the meaning of those words, which is exactly why it's so powerful when you like think about what certain trigger words are or sentences or whatnot. For example, if a relationship's going badly, what you might notice is, aside from like going into the infidelity aspect, is like the text messaging might lower itself from like full on sentences to like the letter K or some stupid shit like that. um yeah, it can be. But that's the thing, is like, it having anxiety, having ADHD or ADD, or being on the spectrum in general, and this is just to throw out there, the way that you experience certain emotions or certain events might be a little bit different. It can be either more anxious filled or less anxious filled, or sometimes you can get foggy brained, which is another defense mechanism that we use to not be able to process shit. It's so hard. Um, might have been. I don't know, dude. I'm trying not to go that long. But yeah, that's the whole purpose. And the reason why I bring it up is because in conversations like this, i.e., Rudy's able to conceptualize what it means to try and save it, but it might just cause the ultimate discomfort for everyone just for a bit, even though he might have saved the family dynamic, I guess. Oh. Yeah, Errol Mangers. That's exactly why this is more of psychology than it is the anime.
なぜ私は助かったのだろう。妊娠は私が悪い。パウロを誘ったのは私なのだ。
Oh gosh. All right. Non-TOS stuff. Thank you. Desktop. No, not mic. What the fuck? I want my mic down. Uh, Here we go. Perfect. Oof. Actually, Venom Snake, abso-fucking-lutely. Thank you for asking. Yes. Even playing video games and stuff. This is why I love Metal Gear, because it's one of those things where, for example, Metal Gear Solid 2, talking about memes and genes and the importance of like passing on, what it means to pass on history onto future generations and whatnot. When it came out in 2002, it was one of the most like divisive games because everyone wanted to play as a cool action hero, Snake. And then, you come to 2020, 2021, and you're like, 2022 even, you're like, holy shit, like, Kojima was thinking ahead of the time, thinking about the social psychology aspect as to what it means to pass on so many things. Yeah, like there was a lot of important aspects like that. And also when I watch shows and stuff, because my analytical brain is always going, sometimes it's not fun. So, for example, I can invite a date over and we could be watching a movie, and I figured out the ending of the movie like 5 minutes in, and they're still acting all surprised, and I'm just like, okay, dude, like, I've because of the psychology chomps and because of everything, it affects a lot. But yes, absolutely right. Anyway, let me go ahead and keep going. until there's no TOS stuff.
散々避けてきた。私は恐れていたのだ。ルーデウスのことを。細ましい笑みで私の胸を見てくる赤子。不気味だった。悪魔つきなのではないかと。
毎日毎日他にやることはないのか、パウロよ。
My dude.
もしあなた今ね俺は尊敬されるかっちょいい兄貴を
No, you know what's the absolute fucking worst? I'm gonna throw this out there. I guess trigger warning for some of y'all. Adults who take their fucking babies into movie theaters that cry. That is the fucking worst. I am sorry, guys, but I have paid to watch a movie, and you bringing in your children to cry and take up these 2 wonderful hours that I wanted to go ahead and chill the fuck out, use their self-care. I do not forgive you guys. Please leave your children at home. Find someone to take care of them for those 2 hours. I don't know, there's... Oh, it is such a triggering event. Ooh, don't even get me started. I hated shit like that. Bro, Venom, when I was coming from the Netherlands to the United States, there was a kid that kept crying and crying and crying and crying and crying until finally, because the COVID times, there wasn't that many people on the plane, they were like, why don't we just move you elsewhere? And I was like, thank you. Damn, dude. Damn. Yeah, you don't. You gotta realize, you gotta create a sound, safe environment for children and take care of them. But it can be a lot of torture for individuals, especially because of the crying aspect and taking up a majority of the time. And granted, I can get a little flex just because there was no way home. And I was about to experience Spider-Man, and I was experiencing crying baby child, and I was like, no. So big oof, a big moment, and it's true. Hey, you know what? Fuck it. I mean, the difference, Dark Thug, is in a plane, at least, it's sort of a commercial thing where you have to fly somewhere, you can't necessarily leave a kid behind, especially if you're moving houses or moving things. Understandable. At least find a way to pacify the child, right? But in movie theaters or in events where children, for example, concert halls, right? I remember because I used to play a lot of percussion, drums, whatnot for concert bands. People would go in there with their children. Musicals. Well, what the fuck? What the fuck, dude? That's just the best way I can put it, if it's an event, if it's a scenario that doesn't require you to take a crying child, don't take a crying child, If you're going to watch a musical or hear a symphony play, don't take a crying child, This is why I don't want kids. Yes, and I always state this and I will keep stating it. If you are an adult or anything in between, the ability to have kids or not is up to you. That is your choice. You get to go ahead and make that choice. Don't let anyone else pressure you into making that choice for you. Anyway. Whew.
当時のパウロは才能はあったが、練習が嫌いで遊び歩いており、挙句の果てにはリーリャの寝込みを襲い、純血を散らし、その後道場を逃げ出したらしい。ろくでもねえ野郎だ。鍛錬の時間だぞ。
Yeah, that's a piece of shit. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I my drink fell on my feet, guys. A little bit just slipped out. So you're telling me that he pushed himself on her, deflowered her, and then ran away. What a piece of shit, dude. If that's the correct way, if there's no further information, bruh, one of the big things that you can go ahead and yeah, if it's SA, and that's exactly the way I'm taking it. Think about it like this: if Paul doesn't have these boundaries and this sense of control or sense of whatever, um, if he doesn't have any boundaries or if he doesn't know what no means, and then he's pushing himself into other people's boundaries, how do you expect a child to grow up? Real question for y'all. Yeah. How do you guys expect a child to grow up? If you guys are just got this piece of information, how, how do you expect the child to go? But Vatash, he had this talk after it happened. Granted, Rudy has might have not been the most like active kid of going out and playing with others, but you should at least talk about like, hey, you know what? Like your body's your body. It's sharing toys, what no means, what not, before an event happens. You know, it's well, you don't know how to be a dad. So Arrow gamers, that's called deflection. I.e., your parents didn't know how to be how to be like parents either. But I bet a majority of our parents sort of were like, hey, you know what? Like, don't play that rough. Hey, don't do this. Hey, sort of lecturing us along the way, even if you were the first child and or the last child. And also, he kind of young. For example, my parents had their first child when they were 18. And they had all those talks with them, you know? Like, it's all about like the way that like you go through what you value as important. And it's not necessarily me trying to trash Paul. And I want to make this absolutely fucking clear. It's like I'm not gonna go ahead and like just trash someone because this brings up a good area of discussion. But it is like the importance of like understanding where our own personal deflections and like projections and just sublimation comes in at times when we're able to go ahead and push off, critical pieces of information. I'm sure there's more backstory to it. Absolutely, right? But if we can use this moment as a teaching environment for other people that are watching and that might think, oh, yeah, no, that Paul's a Giga Chad. He's totally cool. I should follow this example or whatnot. You can go ahead and take that away and be like, huh, you know, like, and also, please know this: if all the trauma in the world may happen to you, but that doesn't mean you have the right or ability to cause other people trauma. Keep that in mind going forward. You do not have, just because some shit happened to you, you do not have the right or the ability to cause other people trauma in their life and justify it. Your trauma is your own, and please, try and get help for it. That is the number one reason on how you uh, go through it, go through life, and especially if you want to make the world a nice and beautiful, better place. Yeah, you like that is the number one thing that you have to like remember on there. But that's and like that's the thing is like I appreciate the discussion of the characters and how we're able to actually go in depth and talk about them and bring out certain aspects because other people will not touch this shit with a giant 6 foot stick. They're not going to go ahead and talk about uh, consent, what is appropriate, not appropriate. How sometimes, hey, sometimes our parents, exactly, sometimes our parents don't know what they're doing as a thing, but they have to learn and they have to grow and adapt and they have to move quickly. I.e., if I see signs that my son or daughter is passing a boundary line, instantly I'd be like, "Hey, what did we talk about? Let's talk about this. Let's go. Like it's time to get on top of it and talk." Like there's so many like different opportunities, and like if people deflect away from like if they're like, "Oh, you just wouldn't understand so much complication of a character that's going through it." And would you guys call a individual that got arrested for, say, SA or something like that, and is out there on the streets, and let's say that kid is showing similar behavior? What is the first thing that would come to your mind? Not the point that I'm bringing up with this is like you'll start seeing that there is no hi chaotics. Thanks for following. But there's not enough I guess individuals or enough people that want to go ahead and approach these subjects and talk about how sometimes like people justify other people causing trauma to others, SADV, so on and so forth, because they're traumatized. And it's like that's not how any of this works. if we allow that justification, if we don't call out that, like, that justification, if we don't say, hey, you know what, that might be a little fucking awkward of an argument to make, how will we be able to call out other weird shit that might pop up in the future? And it's an interesting concept. This has nothing to do with like the point of the anime itself, because the anime is actually bringing this up in a way that allows us to have this discussion. So put this discussion on a separate field than the anime itself. The anime is bringing this up as a point of discussion that might make you think, or you should be thinking about, like, wait a second, that's not right, Or you shouldn't be like, wait a second, Paul's a Giga Chad. No, it's bringing it up with that, like, with that thing, with that ability to go ahead and pick it up and learn from it. Uh, and Venom's, yeah, Venom. That's Venom, but that's the number one thing. Like, for example, I've seen this argument, right? Because a lot of Latino cultures, and I'm not gonna say Latinx first off, I have, but I'm gonna say Latino cultures, Mexican Americans in general, Mexican cultures. I'm not sure about Argentinian because I can't talk for them, but I know a lot of people from, like, I had a friend from Chile that talked to me at similar things, where it became, we have the chancla, very common thing in a lot of like Hispanic Latino cultures, which is like, you misbehave, you get the chancla. Yeah. Now, nowadays we take it as a joke, but back in the days, physical punishment, like getting slapped or something, was quite common. What is the difference? And I will throw this out there to chat. There is a huge difference between me grabbing the chancla and hitting you and being like, no, right? Versus me taking away, say that, like, you bullied a kid, right? And like, I just go and I just like hit you with the chancla or hit you in the face. And I'm like, you don't do that, right? As opposed to like, hey, what's going on? What caused this to happen? Let's understand, right? And splitting those boundaries and being like, hey, if you do this again, you know what? Like, we're gonna end up like, having a chat. We're gonna end up like, I'm gonna go to school with you. I don't care. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be watching you. I don't care if I have to take a day off work. I'm gonna watch you the entire time. Yeah, your friends might make fun of you. That's okay. You think that's funny? Let's keep it up. You want to take this a step further? All right. Like, if you don't want to open up, let's talk about it. Let's be honest and open and have these discussions and be able to present ourselves in that way. So it's being able, yeah, it's individuals, and like a lot of people have this weird conditioning thing where individuals have taken the physical punishment and be like, yeah, slapping a kid or spanking a kid will make them understand quickly. And it's like, no, they're understanding not to do it, not because they understand that it's bad. They're understanding that you're going to spank them, and that's what they don't want. If you want a good, successful, secure individual in the future, you have to have the conversation, the uncomfy conversations that sometimes a lot of people don't want to have, which is like, hey, why did it happen? Where did it come from? Anyway, sorry guys, I really got off topic there.
父さんのようなかっこいい男になりたいか？
浮気して家族崩壊の危機を作り出すような男が
Call
か
him
っこ
out,
いい
bro.
ですか？
Call him out. Holy shit.
あれに懲りたら母様以外に手を出すのは控えてください。
Ooh,
リーリャはいいだろ？
fuck, dude.
次は
This
母
is
様
like
が望ん
next
で実
level.
家に帰るかもしれませんね。
お前も男ならわかる
That
だろ。
might be the safest option. Fuck it,
何
dude.
がわかると言うんですか？
だらしない体してるんだ。
Oh,
父さんも何度か騙されたもんだ。
okay, dude. Okay.
そうなんですか。残念です。可愛い子がいるかと思ったのですが。
お前も女に興味が湧いてきたか？けど追いかける尻は一つにしておいた方がいいぞ。
あ、はい。
I swear, Paul is like the guy from Super Seducer. If you haven't watched it, there's content on YouTube already about Super Seducer. It's like the guy from Super Seducer, but like all the creepy ways, and then you just multiply it times 10. It's like he took like all the bad advice, like through the good routes that was like, do this, do that, and like took the creepy entrances and whatnot into it. That is that is yeah. That's one way to put it. But no, like one of the big things, I shared this previously, I'll share it again. because it is so important for everyone in the future that like may go through something like this or may realize it. Say that you have a partner, right? Um, Say that you're and why the whole topic is regarding conversation and communication, right? And it's that you don't need to associate yourself with anyone that you don't want to be a part of your life. You have the ability to say no to that when you're an adult. And I will clear this up because Rudy's still a child, right? But let's say that like we'll put it into modern day scenario. Let's say that AZ, since I see that he's the lowest one here. Let's say AZ has a partner whose parents are super religious for whatever aspect, right? But AZ's partner is not, right? AZ's partner and AZ decide, hey, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and make love, whatever. His partner ends up finding out, or partner's parents ends up finding out about it, causes a huge deal. You as an individual, or AZ as an individual, does not need to communicate with the partner's parents. Some of you guys might be like, but why? Isn't that sort of like social or family dynamics? If it's become a toxic event in any way, shape, or form, where they're now trying to get in contact with AZ or anything that happens in that relationship, and this is good advice for anyone, anything that happens in any of your relationships is between you and your partner. If at any point anyone tries to come in, you have the right to decline communication with them because they are not direct, like in your direct circle of support. So have that clear in your mind, have that in your head as you're going forward. Like even with parents, especially as you become an adult, if your parents have wronged you or have done something weird unexpectedly, like something weird happens and you're just like, I feel uncomfortable about it, you can burn bridges of communication with individuals that you do not want to have an impact on your life. Build bridges to those who deserve it, those who have like actually been there and care about you and grow and don't want to criticize or judge you, rather than try and change who you are as an individual or try and like get you to change or do certain things, i.e. because of the partner scenario or i.e. because of anything. It is really, really good advice. It is important advice to know that you are an individual that, like, for example, with the partner situation, that has another partner, that has a partner, and your whole relationship is between you and your partner, i.e., as long as you guys are respecting one another, you guys are, safe in that aspect. So please keep that in mind. For those of you guys that might need it, that might need something like this is the sign, this is the advice. Keep that there. I make short videos, and you guys.
シルフィーには才能がある。近いうち俺を追い抜いてしまうかもしれない。
ああ、学校か。デディ、今日は何しよっか。
Let me stop that right there. Yeah, Craze, and it sucks. It like I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. It fucking sucks when you're in scenarios like that. But the best thing that you can do, i.e., if your partner's like that, what you can do is simply do something like, "Hey, you know what? I am never gonna make a decision for you. Like I will be your greatest cheerleader. I will be your support in case you need me. I'll be there for you to vent. Like if they have parents that are super duper controlling or whatnot." But I am never going to tell you to stop talking to your parents or make any decision for you because those are your parents ultimately. And you're going to have communication one way or another, right? Unless you want to go ahead and burn those bridges of communication by yourself. But what you can say is, like, although I respect the fact that they are your parents, I don't want to communicate with them because of A, Y, or Z, Like, you can list out why you don't want to communicate. As long as your partner knows and is able to respect your boundaries that you're setting, because of previous events, previous histories, then you have an ability to keep going forward. So super duper important. And yeah. And yeah, it's just one of the biggest concepts I think people like when you internalize it when you're like, wait a second, I have a friend, for example, I have a friend who keeps overstepping his boundaries and keeps like doing certain things. Okay, do they deserve your communication at this point? If they're overstepping the boundaries that you guys have set? Well, no. Then what are you doing? Oh, it's because, they mentioned that they might hurt themselves. Okay, well then, talk to another friend, someone that's closer to them, a family member, see if they can get professional help or, if they can contact the suicide hotline. But that feeling of guiltiness or that feeling associated with that does not belong to you, and neither does the guilt of making decisions for someone else. So, super duper important. Super important to just keep that in mind because yeah, a lot of people don't have these types of conversations, and it's rare to hear it. You know. Aww. Sophie's too adorable.
こんな子
おいルディ
用がないなら出て行ってください。もう
お前に手紙だ。
手紙？
ルーデウスへ。いかがお過ごしでしょうか。早いもので、あなたと別れてから2年が経ちました。私は
Real question for y'all. This might be a little TMI. For some of y'all, especially all you lurkers in the chat. No, I love you and I appreciate y'all, especially for saying with all the craziness that comes through with it. Coming in, it's only 3 seconds long, so let's save after that. What time is for the TOS, by the way? Yeah. How many of y'all have been caught beating the meat, choking the chicken, if you will? And how uncomfortable was it to go through something like that? Oof. In any way, shape, or form. Yeah. Why am I bringing it up? Or even like, I don't know, expressing extreme emotions of affection towards like your partner, your individual, or, you know, whatever it may be. How many of you all have been caught in a situation that's like that, essentially? Your most vulnerable situations. And then there's just a face. Oof. Yeah. Oh, shit. Oh. Well, okay, how many of you guys have caught your parents? Holy shit, dude. Venom. Damn. Yeah. It could be one of the best ways that I can put it. It is one of the most vulnerable moments if you get caught in the act, either if you have a partner and you guys are doing stuff and someone walks in, i.e., your brother or your mom or whatever. It is one of the most vulnerable positions to get caught. Or even vice versa, you know? No, honestly, masters, I will go ahead and throw this out there, and I think that this is an area of study that I will go into and later on, like, probably put up a survey. I don't think hentai should be, I don't know, like, demonized. There are a lot of people in the mental health community in general that will be like, oh no, you're not watching normal porn. It's like, what the fuck? Have you taken sexology? Porn is porn. It is like literally back in the day, people would write caricatures and like get off to reading. People would like get off to paint. People get off to anything. Porn is pornography, and it is like, yeah, and I probably shouldn't be saying too much because of TOS, but I will say this, like, just keep in mind that like it is okay to like, you know, fantasize and have these fantasies and whatnot, because at the end of the day, you know, when you watch it on the tube, you know, everything that you see on there for the most part is scripted, is a fantasy, is the same things, you know. So yeah, it's but that's the thing, is like there are a lot of like, and I've encountered this because I encountered a psychologist where I was working at before, where they would say like, "Oh yeah, no, I told them to stop doing that," and it's like, who are you to say that? You're no one to say that. Like what they like or what they dislike. In fact, you know, you can even like start talking to them about like what it can mean to do certain things, you know. But like, yeah, it is super important to go ahead and like rationalize that just because it's not a video doesn't mean it's bad, because there are people that get off to cosplays, they get off to images of like weird shit. Anything can be sexualized in that aspect, you know. But yes, that's one of the biggest purposes that I was talking about, is sort of the vulnerability and like emotions that come after being caught. It can be like either embarrassment, shame, guilt, and just know that here in this community, in this YouTube channel, we do not judge your kinks and we do not judge your fetishes, you know, unless it passes the barrier. And I think that's super important to go ahead and like just you really clipped it. Just talk about, you know?
住んだりするところもそっくりです。英雄色を好むというのでしょうか。ことで行き詰まることがあれば
It's probably another individual with weird power dynamics shit. Like individuals that automatically go into like a weird assault mode like that, you can tell that they're like have weird fucked up ideas of what power dynamics are, have weird ideas as to what the sexualization of individuals are, don't really know what boundaries or consent are. You can make almost instant assumptions if they're just jumping into doing something like that because they might be in a position of power almost immediately, you know?
ですが、彼女の家は我が家ほど裕福ではありません。
Oh.
つきましては、2人分の学費を払っていただければとお願いします。
ほう、二人でラノアに。ダメだ。
Okay, let me quickly analyze Paul's thinking. Okay. If I am the parent and I have a fucked up, I guess, attachment or fucked up way of thinking, how would I? Okay, instantly. Paul may think, and this is a man, this is me shooting in the dark just based off of the way that he's interacted and the way that, we've learned more information about him, that there might be big codependency issues. Instead of like being able to develop a healthy attachment, it might be too much of a codependency issue in which one might rely too much on the other. Or there might be, which by the way, as a psychologist, what you may want to go ahead and do is like, if it was like a no, you can't go to this university with this kid, or no, it's because we don't have the money, or no, whatever, right? One of the biggest things that you can go ahead and do is actually be able to build independence off of, having a partner there, having someone there, having an individual that you care about, having, for example, if I were to go somewhere far away, say that like a university or some weird shit like that, I would feel 1,000 times more secure and like the ability to not only express myself as an independent, but also be able to like build friendships, be able to grow as an individual, be able to communicate, be able to establish if Brady went with me, or if any of y'all decided to like go with me, because I have that person there. I have that like base that you're able to go ahead and communicate. If we were to go ahead and fuck, if we were to go ahead and like make I don't know, like by yourself, all of a sudden you have no home base. You have no issues with I don't know how to put it. Now you have to start from zero essentially. Yeah, because like let's be real. How many of you guys would have issues if all of a sudden you went to a whole new place completely alone without anyone ever knowing you? It would take a while for you to get used to the like sort of. I want to see the desert. Yeah, you don't. You don't, AZ. It's too hot. But like, how many of you guys would have issues if like all of a sudden you were sent to say another country without any form of connection or friendships? Yep. And when you actually have someone there that you're able to connect with, not only do they grow because they're able to express themselves freely and build friendships and make that introduction happen, but you're also able to go ahead and grow as well. So that's the main point there. It's like if that's the number one. Okay, show me your reasons.
お前の師匠としてここで放り出すわけにはいかない。
Okay, so you saw stuff to learn.
お前は賢いがまだ幼い。親としての責任を放棄するわけにはいかない。
Bro, but you've clearly
わかった。そういうことなら心当たりを当たってみよう。
ありがとうございます。
Don't tell me he's about to do something fucking stupid. Bro. See, Craze, that's where I think it's completely wrong. And like in a regard, right? I.e., when you actually have someone that you can bounce ideas off of and grow, you're able to go ahead and start independentizing yourself. That's why it's one of the hardest things in like concepts, and this is why we talk about boundaries, this is why we talk about communications, is like once you reach, of age or whatnot, you gotta set boundaries with your parents, yo. That's like the number one thing you guys gotta start doing. I know it's fucking hard, but you have to, i.e., it doesn't matter who I'm with, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I am an adult. Let me experience the mistakes for myself, right? But because sometimes parents love to cling on to that shit and be like, you can't live through what I lived through. You have to learn from me. And it's like, no, I don't. I have to learn to be better than you, but I also have to experience mistakes. I also have to experience trouble in order to overcome and become a better person. Like, you can't just expect perfection, especially out of what you've lived through, and project your insecurities onto us, you know? Super important to go ahead and label that and be able to talk about that, because not a lot of people are comfortable bringing up, yeah, not a lot of people are comfortable bringing that stuff up. Now, when it comes to like individuals growing, if you have a friend there, if you have a whatever there, I 100% bet you that like if you're a shy little kid and you have a friend there, you will be able to grow, with having your friend there as a purpose. Otherwise, what can happen is you can become estranged, you know? You can, like, it can be a lot more difficult for someone to have their attachment just completely, like, taken away, or 1,001 things. So, yeah, it's rough, man. It is a rough world out there.
ってことでいいんだな。
あ
うちのルーデウスをよろしくね。
あ
ルーデウス坊ちゃま、寂しくなります。元気でね。帰ってくるのを楽しみに待ってるわ。
What fucking parents are you guys? You guys don't even explain to your kid? He looks so fucking confused. What the fuck is...
はい、なんでしょう。
お前さ、シルフィーと距離を置けって言われたらどう？
I would say you're a fucking idiot that's made bad decisions in life already, and you're trying to impose and project your decisions onto me being your child, and therefore think that I have to go ahead and get more experience and build myself better off of your projection that I'm already more mature enough from the age that I've been at, and therefore covering the insecurities as to who you are in an individual inside of this power dynamic. I would also feel that you might think that, I don't know, that me being away will help her or grow, when it might actually stifle growth for a little bit, and me going into a position that, maybe far away doing whatever I have to do might completely stifle me as well. Or if you're talking about codependency, what if I get codependent over there? What if that is the main feature of fear that you have, and yet I have to go and become codependent, or, babysit, or, I don't know, tend to the field or do something that is unproductive, and yet you haven't completely thought of that? I feel like you're just completely irrational when it comes to scenarios like that. Sorry.
思う？
は？嫌に
Fuck.
決まってるじゃないですか。
どうなってんだ？
10 out of 10 for parenting, right? Fuck me, mate.
ルーデウスプレイラ
Instead
と
of like
申します。
at least giving a lowdown.
礼儀正しいのだな。
I feel a lot of things. But I think I've said more than enough, because we have gone on for almost 4 hours now at this point in the night. And I feel like, there's still going to be a lot to process, a lot to think about, a lot to enjoy as we keep going forward, and a lot to try and understand, just in terms of what it means to, for example, and this is what I'm talking about, like, just like codependency, dependency in general. If we were to talk about like attachment, right? If Paul is fear is like they're getting too attached, which i.e., what the fuck? Attachment is beautiful. It's normal. It's how you build a good environment. But what if just magically you just remove all attachments? Remove Paul's attachments. What happens? I bet you anything. Like, say that like for some reason he couldn't like contact Rudy as, or him and his, I guess, wife and maid. The wife and maid decide to run off to meet with Rudy and like leave Paul or whatever, right? I bet you anything he would become like destroyed. He probably wouldn't be, he'd be the shell of a man of who he is today because of what he's exhibited so far. And in case you're wondering, what are you exhibiting? Wow, my English, this is how you know it's rough. My English is already losing. What are you exhibiting? Exactly. let's talk about, like, you know, we've talked about projection, we've talked about all the other like aspects, you know, and sort of why it's important to go ahead and like not just projection in general, but like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Where does Paul fit in that? Where does he fit in the sociological imaginations or his own defense mechanisms or nothing like that? What you'd see is like he'd probably be a drunkard, a shell of a man. He'd probably try and like defend his actions as to like why he has like a violent outburst or why he decides to like go ahead and like sleep with 1,001 women. You would probably never hear the end of it. But anyway, with that being said, I really appreciate all of you guys being here. Hope you guys had a good time because I know I did. I really, really enjoyed it. I have a headache, so I'm not going to go as in depth as I did in the other videos, but we did go way in depth in terms of like just all the other conversations. I appreciate all of you guys being here. Hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below if you agree, disagree with whatever parts. Please don't be creepy in the comments because if you are creepy, I will delete the comment or one of the mods will delete the comment. Don't post spoilers. We're going episode by episode here. I appreciate you all. Practice some self-care, and I'll talk to you guys next time.